Hello guys, and how are you doing? It's a beautiful Monday. This is Dr. Max from Dr. Max Online School once again. And today we are continuing with our travel and tourism. And I think in the past lessons we introduced the subject and its key components and the structure of the papers. So we are moving on to 1,3. In 1,1 we touched on the main types of tourism. 1,2 we touched on the main reasons why people travel, in which we explained that people can travel for leisure, they can travel for business, there's also visiting friends and relatives, there are also what we call special interests, like that's the fourth type. So it's just a recap. I'm trying to refresh your mind, but we just don't have to waste much of our time dwelling on that. We have to put our foot on the acceleration as we move on to the sustainable travel and tourism, which is 1,3. Sustainable travel and tourism. It is 4 aspects that we must cover. The topic is sustainable travel and tourism. So there is sustainability, sustainable travel and tourism, ecotourism, and responsible tourism. So sustainability and responsibility work hand in hand. For tourism to thrive, there must be sustainability or the perpetuation of what? Of tourism. So we have to protect the environment. We have to protect our tourism resources. We have to use them sparingly so that they can be used in the future. So I would rather start by saying our actions today can affect the future. For example, traveling to a tourist destination can cause pollution, yes. Like aircraft, ships, boats, and even cars with their exhaust fumes. You can talk of trains and buses. They can cause air pollution. So that's what we want to look at. We want to curtail that. So tourism developments, such as built attractions, affect the natural environment. And also, like when you are building, let's say, airports, or when you are building railway lines, or when you are constructing, or when you are laying down the railway lines, this means that you might clear forest. And clean seawater can be polluted by wastewater from hotels. So animal habitats can also be can be damaged through tourism. So tourism development can affect the people who live in these destinations. And traditional way of life can be lost, and developing a tourism resort right beside the sea may stop local people from fishing. It might affect their livelihood. So some local people's way of making a living could be lost because of tourism. That's when we talk about sustainability. So what is sustainability? Sustainability is our ability to sustain or conserve the environment and people's way of life into the future, to conserve, to take care of. So sustainable tourism today protects the future environment and people's way of life into the future. So you find out that tourists and tourism providers can behave in sustainable ways by reducing or reusing and recycling resources. There's an illustration here, like the stuff that I'm using to teach here, the material that I'm using you to teach. There's an illustration by a girl called Rose, who explains how tourism can reduce, reuse, and recycle. So, like reduce, reuse, and recycle are the 3 areas of sustainability. And what are resources? The resources are the things that are useful to people. For example, water, wood, oil, and equipment. These are the resources. So we have sustainable travel and tourism, guys. What is it? So sustainable travel and tourism is traveling to destinations in ways that are sustainable. For example, we can travel by air, or you can travel by train, right, by rail, instead of by air. Like staying in and visiting destinations in ways that are sustainable. For example, you can stay in an eco-friendly accommodation. Some accommodations are eco-friendly, like they're ecologically friendly, or they are friendly to the environment. So when you talk about an eco-friendly space or eco-friendly accommodation. It describes products and behaviors that do lead to or no harm to the natural environment. They are friendly to the environment, they do not destroy the environment. So there is sustainable travel and tourism, like going to visit places in ways that help sustain or maintain or conserve the environment and how people live. So ecotourism is part and parcel of responsible tourism. Like ecotourism and responsible tourism are two types of sustainable tourism. So ecotourism is tourism for visitors who want to visit the natural environment, because eco is from ecological, and ecological means the environment in simpler terms. So when you talk about ecotourism, is whereby tourists or visit the natural environment, like a tourist staying overnight on an organic farm in France or in Zimbabwe could be an example of an ecotourist. Like they want to tour the mountains, the rivers, because they are part of the environment. These resources or these places are part of the environment. So like the farm that I've just given you as an example, which can be in France, the farm might provide eco-friendly accommodation. If, for example, meals are made from organic food produced on the farm. I've seen some people have turned their homes or their places, like someone might have a farm, then he or she might turn it into a tourist destination. So the people who visit that place and pay for accommodation and for other services can be eating the food that is produced in that farm. So that's part of what we call ecotourism. Like meals are made from organic food produced on the farm, and right on the farm the waste is recycled, and electricity is also generated on the farm using wind or solar power. That's ecotourism. So ecotourism is a responsible tourism, because like responsible tourism involves behaving like respectfully towards the environment and the local people. Sustainability. So tourism to any destination can be responsible if visitors behave respectfully towards the environment and the local and the local people. And tourist to a city destination can be responsible tourist if, for example, the tourists, number one, do not litter in the streets or make like too much noise. It's also sustainable if they would hire local people as tour guides. Let's say, for example, we were visiting. I was teaching at a certain school, and we had a trip to the Heroes Acre. At the Heroes Acre, they have a tour guide. Why do they have a tour guide? It's quite cheaper for them, right? And that person knows the place better than someone who comes from outside. So again, it benefits that area, that local area, why people can spend money in locally owned shops and restaurants rather than coming in with their own chefs or caterers. So when people come in a certain area, they shouldn't litter the place. They should hire local people in a way of supporting them. Then they must spend the money locally, like in those, like in locally owned shops and restaurants. I once talked about this girl who talked about the 3 R's. She said that, Rose, she talks about the 3 R's, recycle and stuff. Like, she says, I've been thinking about food in sustainable tourism. So she said a restaurant chef can reuse surplus food that has not been used. They can reuse the surplus food, right? Like, I'm falling in the temptation of adding some Shona expressions. Let me try to be as English as possible. So she talks about a restaurant chef. It says that right at a restaurant they can reuse the surplus food that has not been used. They can reuse the surplus food for another meal and can recycle food waste. The 3 R's can also be followed for water, soap, and paper. Anything really that can be recycled. So tourists can eat organic food produced where they are staying to reduce pollution from chemical pesticides and from transporting brought in food. Because sometimes you might need to transport the food. This means that, let's say it's a tourist destination. Right at that tourist destination, they must grow vegetables. They must rear animals. The pigs for pork, the cattle for beef, right at that same area. I've seen people eating like crocodile meat in Victoria Falls. Like there's a crocodile farm in Victoria Falls. So it becomes easy and cheaper for them to host the crocodiles. They don't need to transport. They just take one from those ponds and feed the people. So that's part of sustainable tourism. That's part of sustainable tourism. It's quite an easy and understandable aspect. So we also have there's the day female from farm to farm, which is one of the case studies we have to look at, like sustainable farming in France. It is a tourism event that happens in France every year. Tourists and local people visit farms that practice sustainable farming, and the visitors drive or cycle a few kilometers from farm to farm, like they'll be traveling from farm to farm in that weekend to discover the traditional ways of life of farming families. They explore the environmentally friendly methods the farmers use to produce organic food. And you find out that many of the farmers who take part in the event, they sell the food they grow into their own farm shops and at local markets. It's like a cycle right in that same area. It's beneficial to them, and they cannot have many more extra costs. So farm shops, local markets, and the DFMA and FMA event are very popular with tourists who visit the French countryside, like the French rural areas. That's where it happens. It's FMA and FMA in French, which means from farm to farm. Like during that weekend, people will be touring. So this farmer will be producing corn. After you have appreciated it, you might move to your farm where they'll be producing, let's say, wine, grapes. Then you can have like organic wine from that farm. So the event helps farmers to promote their businesses to tourists and gain more income. So the money that the farmers make can be used, can help in sustaining their livelihoods right on their own land in the countryside. So they do not have to move or to find towns to find jobs. Like they have everything right in their farms. There is no need for any rural to urban migration, because where they are living is also where they can get some income from. So that's it for today, guys. Next lesson, which is on tomorrow, we are going to look at characteristics of travel and tourism. So that's it for today. Thank you and bye-bye for now.